I talked about this on Fox News 2 weeks ago, and it sort of went viral. That the battle in the Middle East, I always knew, was not about land. If Israel were the size of Manhattan, they would want to destroy
No,
it.
it's not about land.
No. But every single professor at Columbia said it was land.
How are conflicts resolved? Well, when husband and wife, per se, have an argument over whatever it may be, they find a common ground at some point, find a way to resolve, because they have both committed to each other when they got married to each other. And any differences they try throughout life to reconcile. When there is a conflict between countries, whether it's a border conflict, or whether it's a commerce conflict or religious conflict, the way it gets resolved is if there is a meeting of the minds. That when you have two bordering countries who want to live in peace, but there are differences that cause the conflict. So there's a table, and you come to sit around the table and you begin hashing out the differences and see where one can compromise and where the possibility of resolving the conflict. When you deal with the conflict that's going on in Israel, it's a very different conflict than your traditional conventional war. It was very clear that Russia invaded Ukraine, that Russia invaded Crimea, and it was a territorial invasion. But what's happening in Israel on October 7, when Hamas came to Israel, they didn't come to Israel to conquer territory. They came to Israel to kill, to mutilate, to burn, to rape, to murder and kill as many thousands as they can. The enemy that Israel's are facing on all the fronts is an enemy that's interested in your annihilation. When you have an enemy who's not fighting because of the borders, because of the territory, but it's an ideological war that they just don't want Jews in Israel. They don't want us to have our homeland. And they've made it very clear, and throughout history, how many concessions, how many times Israel tried to make peace with the Arab neighbors. So much so that Ehud Barak and the Oslo Accords were ready to give away like 90% of the West Bank. And miraculously, Arafat didn't want it. How many times did Israel try to create a peace, land for peace? Doesn't work. They're not interested in land. They're interested in annihilation. They do not want Israel or the Jews to be in Israel. Such an enemy, there's no table to talk to. There's no peace to negotiate. We just have to mobilize and fortify our borders and keep those enemies as far away as possible. It's a very interesting discussion, which I would like you to kindly listen together. Mr. Dennis Prager, who I personally known, he lives right in Los Angeles, right up the road from us. He has been here to our congregation to lecture, talks amazingly on his radio show, lectures throughout the world. He is a very, very clear thinker. He is fair, he is logic, he is knowledgeable, he's brilliant, but his experiences in dealing with world leaders and with professors from all walks of life, from the various universities that he has traveled, he has a wealth of knowledge and an understanding that his opinion is an opinion that we definitely want to listen to. Please listen to this beautiful, inspiring, meaningful, poignant conversation, and I hope that that would bring some clarity to you as well.
think we sort of make a mistake, and we've run into this abroad with a lot of foreign policy, is we assume they want what we want. You know what I mean? Like, everyone wants to live in peace, everyone wants freedom, everyone wants harmony. And all we have to do is string together the right words in the right order, and we could express that to them. So we sort of treat it as if you're having an argument with your wife and she just doesn't understand that you really care about her and love her. And so you will put that down on a greeting card and we will somehow right this ship or repair this. But if she wants you dead, then what is it that you could say to her that would ever remedy that?
Well, we could modify that slightly, because I think you could say that it might be the case that the values that are put forward as central in the West explicitly are the most essential human values, and that that's universal, but that a dedicated minority in any place can put the boots to that pretty damn rapidly. And so, you know, when the foreign policy idea is, well, there is a desire for freedom that's part and parcel of the human spirit, fair enough. But how much opposition does that have to run into before it's impossible? And the answer might be, and I think it could well be, that it doesn't have to run into that much opposition to be in jeopardy. Like a committed minority, even a committed small minority, can have a disproportionate effect. I think there's evidence supporting that proposition.
If I may, I want to comment on as you did, on what Adam said. I was a student at two institutes at the School of International Affairs in Graduate School at Columbia, the Russian Institute and the Middle East Institute. I did Hebrew, Arabic, and Russian. So I want you to know that Adam's analysis of the Middle East was more cogent than all of my professors in the Middle East Institute at Columbia. He hit it the bullseye. The staggering error of the naive that everybody wants the same thing. And that's why, for example, I was taught the nonsense, and I talked about this on Fox News 2 weeks ago, and it sort of went viral, that the battle in the Middle East, I always knew, was not about land. If Israel were the size of Manhattan, they would want to destroy it.
No, it's not about land.
No. But every single professor at Columbia said it was land. The New York Times says it's land. They all say it's land. You know it, I know it, and Adam knows it. It's that one side wants the other side dead. That's it. And that's because of religion, because for traditional Islam, there is no room for Jewish or Christian, for that matter, hegemony in the middle of the Middle East. Period. End of issue. They want Israel dead. There was nothing Israel withdrew from Gaza, and all they got was Hamas.
Let me ask you a quick question about that.
Yeah.
Do you see any hope? I mean, Israel has been negotiating somewhat more successfully with many countries in the Middle East now than, say, 15 years ago. Is that true or not?
Yes, in large measure, thanks to the man that is reviled by the left, Donald Trump.
Okay, so you do think it's true. Why would you attribute it to Trump?
Because Trump said, I don't give a hoot about the Palestinian radicals. They are not the central issue in the Middle East. And as soon as the rest of the Arab countries saw that America was strong and not bowing to the most radical elements of Islamic life, they said, you know what? Israel's not all that bad, frankly, and we would like to do business with it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a meta question here. Why do you guys think that conflict got dragged into this conversation? I mean, the reason I'm asking that is because, I mean, that conflict, everyone in the world, their eyes are focused on it in a way that isn't true of any other conflict. And it's certainly not a consequence of the number of people who are involved. There's something magical about that conflict, and that pertains to your statement that it's not about land, it's about religion. And maybe it's about even more than religion, who knows, or perhaps not. But, you know, what was you think that called forth that conflict into this conversation?
Adam correctly raised it when he was talking about the gulf between liberal and left. He, to his credit, raised the Middle East as an example. Liberals were always pro-Israel. The left was always anti-Israel. And that's, If you can't see the moral clarity of the Middle East issue, Hamas primitives versus a modern liberal democracy called Israel, there's something wrong with your moral compass.
So why do you think the radical left is pro-Palestine particularly? Why did they pick that?
I don't know anything about the region, but I do sort of know what animates people. My feeling is, and as someone who grew up with a mother who was sort of this way and a grandmother who dabbled in communism a little bit, they want to push back against everything that is. So it's more of an anarchist approach than it is, here's my plan. They always, no one can really say that out loud, but it's sort of like defund the
police. So it's part of it's part of revolution in a sense.
Yeah, just burn it all.
It's an extension of revolution.
It's basically one house has a well-groomed lawn and a white picket fence, and the other one has a sofa rotting on the lawn and a guy smoking weed standing on the porch, and I only have one Molotov cocktail. What direction do I throw it? It's always going to go toward the house with the white picket fence if these people are lighting the Molotov
Yeah,
cocktail.
well, one of the things I have noticed about when in my discussion with well-meaning people who tilt more to the left, say, than you guys, is that they are generally relatively unwilling to consider the role of dark emotions in political motivation, right? They tend to think things like, well, the people on the radical left, their heart's in the right place, but their means are wrong. But what they're trying to do is to stand up for the oppressed, however badly they're doing it. And I think, well, I had this experience. You can tell me what you think of this, but it really, I just re-encountered it. I was looking at the discussion I had with Slavoj Žižek a few years ago about Marxism, putatively. That isn't really what the conversation ended up being about. But I offered a 15-minute critique of the Communist Manifesto at the beginning. And at one point, I described it to the audience as a call to bloody, violent revolution, which is what it was. And there were a lot of people in the audience, a disproportionate number for my audiences, who had come to see Žižek kick the slats out from underneath me. And so there were a lot of people who were very far left in the audience. And when I said call to bloody, violent revolution, a good fifth of the audience cheered and laughed. And it stopped me in my tracks because it was quite chilling. I heard the mob in that moment. And, it was a Freudian moment. Freud noted that people often laughed at things that had deep psychological significance, and also that you could express your true feelings when you were hidden in a crowd. Well, and the true feelings were, well, the Communist Manifesto, who the hell cares about its rationality and its justification? It's like, it's a call for a violent revolution, and hooray, let's do it. And I thought, yeah, you bastards, you revealed yourself in that laugh, in that chilling, awful, unconscious, willfully blind, malevolent glee at the notion of the picket fence burning down. And the question is, well, what's generating that malevolence? And the surface story is, well, you got that through ill-got means. And so the right thing to do is to take it back. And that goes along with the claim that power is the fundamental motivation. What I can't understand is how the hell those of us who don't believe that have been so weak, let's say, that we allowed the educational institutions to be overtaken by people who are propounding that preposterous doctrine. It's like, what the hell's wrong with us? Conservatives and liberals alike. What did we do wrong?
Well, they know what they're doing in that they know everyone's Achilles heel is a claim of power, especially power that's ill-gotten. Your dad's rich, now you're rich.
Yeah. And then your grandfather was a landowner.
Right. And then race, right? So why do you think they weave race into every single subject? It gets the other side to shut it up.
Yes.
And you don't have to prove your point. You just call everyone a racist. And we can.
Well, yeah, you put them on their heels right away, right? Because if you're yelling about systemic racism and I object to it, I'm instantly a racist. It's so convenient. But that still doesn't excuse our weakness in the face of that. Now, Dennis, you put your finger on something. You said the thing about conservatives is they like to be left alone.
Mhm.
Well, so maybe
Right.
that makes conservatives particularly weak in the
That's
faces
correct.
in the face.
That's
Yeah,
right.
okay.
You see, we have fulfilled lives outside of power. I am fulfilled in so many arenas, having nothing to do with political power or running the Board of Education in my local district. I am fulfilled by my religion. As you heard, I'm religious. I am fulfilled. I love America. I love my Judaism. I love my family. I love my friends. I have synagogue every week, one that I helped found. I mean, my life is so rich, not to mention my music, but theirs isn't. Their richness derives from political activism. That is their raison d'etre. And as Adam pointed out, the term I use is chaos.
Okay, so let me bug you about that for a minute. So I have some sympathy with your argument. I think there's empirical data, if I remember correctly, showing that the most unhappy people are left-leaning men.
Right.
Okay, so but we'll leave that to the side.
Oh, really? Not left-leaning
Well, just
women? I think it's a tie.
So I can't remember the data well enough to cite it with perfect accuracy. So, but look, so there's young people, they go off to university and they're looking for this sense of involvement that you just described. Okay, now the leftist propagandists who are teaching them, let's say, are appealing to that and offering them a kind of romantic adventure. Now, that matches their developmental need at that point. That should be the point at which they're richly encultured by an intact myth, something like that. Well, the fact that that isn't being provided in a credible manner is what lays young people open to this kind of propaganda. So it still takes me back to the failure of liberalism and...
Right.
And that's when you get a little too philosophical versus pragmatic. What's happening on the ground? What's happening on the ground is very clear. We have an enemy who is not a partner in peace, who's not interested in peace. Everyone can agree that it's not about land anymore. It was disguised as if it was a territorial issue. Iran is very far away from the border of Israel. Yemen, the Houthis, are very far away from the border of Israel. Yet, they are trying everything possible to annihilate us. So obviously, it's not a territorial issue. It's more of an identity issue. That they just cannot stand that Jewish people who have a very different compass than they do, who have a very different creed and constitution than they do, is amidst them. Now, why did God pick Israel to be in the Middle East? Only God would know. Why did God give us Israel, the only land in the Middle East without oil? Only God knows. But what we do know is that is our homeland. In 1948, that became our home once again after we have endured the Holocaust and have been displaced from country to country for 2,000 years. We finally were able to come back home. When we came home in 1948, we came home to a country that was exceedingly impoverished, non-functional, and we were able to work by the sweat of our brows and work, and fight to be able to turn Israel into what it is today. Today, Israel is a true shining beauty of a country that has been able to literally go from ashes to high-risers, was able to show the world when there's a will, there's a way. The Palestinians had the exact same opportunity. The Arab countries, the neighbors, had the exact same opportunity as Israel has to be able to turn themselves into a democracy, a functioning country where the citizens are not starving and where there is no dictatorship, but rather there is freedom to live and to be able to live comfortably, meaningfully, and have all the resources of medicine, transportation, communication, technology possible. Israel has always been ready and able to share whatever it has with its neighbors. And this is why it's important to be able to listen to these conversations from these great thinkers and realizing what is the truth. The truth is that all Israel wants is peace. Live and let live. Let us be a light unto the nations, and let our enemies give up their wish to annihilate us, because that wish has been there for thousands of years and no one has succeeded, neither will they. May God protect us all. May God bring peace upon all of us. God bless you. God loves you.